Cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter. That's right. Welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian, and we're ready to go for episode number 28. 5 more fantastic chapters for you.
Yeah, that's right, man. Tigers should have been playing a doubleheader today, but you know the Cardinals have only played 5 games all year. So that's pretty crazy, just when you think about that.
Yeah, that's more than crazy. And you got, I mean, at this point, you have to wonder if they're even going to play 50 games. And I saw that another member of their staff tested positive earlier today. So it's just one hit after another for the St. Louis Cardinals. So hopefully they'll be able to play at some point this weekend or sometime soon.
Yeah, they're driving rental cars separately or something to the next stadium. It's a real saga when it comes to the St. Louis Cardinals, that's for sure.
All right, well, as far as our show is concerned, definitely want to thank everybody who's watching on YouTube, Facebook Live, and also Twitch. Of course, we're on Twitch now, twitch.tv/The Fith Chapter. Also, those who are listening via the podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. For those of you that want to listen, it will be available at just before midnight on the day of each show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate in each show by sending in your feedback via Twitch, via Facebook, and via YouTube. Let's take a look at today's book. In the second chapter, a couple of Big Ten coaches have announced their plans for Big Ten football in the spring. We'll share with you those plans. In the third chapter, Matt Stafford's best friend, Dan Orlovsky, says that Stafford could leave after the 2020 season. We'll tell you what could lead to Stafford ending his tenure in Detroit. In the fourth chapter, Jerry Jones, the head coach of the Cowboys, wants fans in the stands and he wants players standing for the anthem, but as he's starting to change his stance on the national anthem kneelers now that the rest of the country is changing. And in the fifth chapter, it is story time. I, of course, have another ride-sharing story for you, and it is related, once again, to the strip club, if you were wondering. So make sure that you are ready for that. But Dennis, let's start off with the first chapter. And we begin with the 9-7 Tigers. They have a little 2-game losing streak, and they're off today. They start a 3-game series tomorrow against the Indians. And based on recent history, that means the Tigers will have a losing record by Sunday night because, well, they're awful against the Indians. Last year, they were 1-18 against the Tribe. And that's just their second series in a row as they continue to face tougher competition, which is going to continue for the next month plus. And as they do so, they continue to have really awful starting pitching. Tyler Alexander looked more like the Tyler Alexander of last year when he pitched on Tuesday. We spoke about that a little bit on Tuesday's show. He did not look like the AL strikeout record holder. And then yesterday, Matt Boyd continued to look like a hashtag bum and gave up 7 runs in less than 5 innings. Meanwhile, you got Casey Mize continuing to rot in Toledo. Dennis, what do you think about this 9-7 team, their schedule, and their starting rotation right now?
Well, notify our producer that's running the Facebook Live to make sure he hits that going. So I don't see it rolling in here. Everything else looks pretty good. I think the Tigers are hoping that maybe Clevenger and his buddy will go out for maybe another dinner or something, so somehow these guys will be out of the rotation. I think that with the schedule toughening up and really the C.J. Cron injury, when you just look at what they have to do, they're moving this guy here, moving that guy there. That's devastating to this team. He was huge. I know it's just a 1-year guy. You're already thinking about trading him at the end of the month, but he he gave him a big lift, and he was a threat for him. And now that's a gigantic hole in their lineup. They don't really have, besides Turnbull, anybody that they can really rely on right now as their starter. So, yeah, I think you just look ahead here, and if they come out of and then they got the Twins on the horizon as well. If at this time next week we're sitting here and we're not talking about the season being over and, the interest really plummeting with the team, that'll be a surprise. So it's a big week for the Tigers, man. Can they just, can they keep the interest going?
Yeah, that is a big key, and it's going to be very difficult. And it looks like we are having some issues with the Facebook stream. I was trying to get that settled as we started the show, but I don't know if we're going to get that. So if you could certainly direct everyone to Twitch or to YouTube for the time being, that would help, because obviously those are great ways to watch the show as well. But when you are a low-talent team like the Tigers, you have to walk a tight rope. You have a very thin margin for error, and the margin for error is going to continue to get smaller and smaller if things don't turn around, and it looks like it's going to get late really early, and I think it could get ugly in a short period of time, like you were saying, about a week. I mean, nobody thought this team was going to contend for anything. I certainly didn't think they'd be 9-5 through 14 games or 9-7 through 16. If they want to stay afloat, if they want to stay in contention, especially with the injuries to Buck Farmer and C.J. Cron, then they have to not only get fortunate, get lucky, continue to have the power surge that they did not have last year, but they've got to make two pretty big decisions and make the right decisions right away. And those two easy decisions are, number one, moving Jacoby Jones from the number 9 spot to one of the top 2 spots in the order, either first or second. And then number 2, inserting Casey Mize into the starting rotation. The rotation right now is Boyd, who was terrible again yesterday, Turnbull, who's been pretty good but has a small sample size as a major leaguer. You got the Fulmer Norris piggyback. You got Ivan Nova, and then you've got whoever the fifth starter du jour is right now. That's Tyler Alexander, and he was a hashtag bum once again on Tuesday. It's a really bad rotation on paper. It's a really bad rotation in reality. The best case scenario for this team is for Turnbull to continue to pitch like he has, for Fulmer to pitch like he did in his last outing and then eventually get to 4 innings and 5 innings per start, for Nova and Boyd to move up to being serviceable, and I guess Nova has been serviceable. But even that is not good enough if your number 5 starting pitcher continues to be a train wreck, because Tyler Alexander as a starter deserves to be in AAA or AA. The best way that they can stay in contention with this rotation is to bring Casey Mize up, give him a shot, and if he can be a serviceable starter, at least your rotation won't be one of the 5 or 6 worst in Major League Baseball. If that's the case, then they have no shot the rest of the way. If Mize can move this rotation to being serviceable by being serviceable himself, or even better than that, then if some of the other things start to line up, they have a shot. But with all the issues they have right now, they can't afford to have their best hitter in the worst spot on the lineup and arguably their best starting pitcher off the team because of service time issues or something else.
Yeah, I'm right with you on your 2 suggestions there. A lot of times I'm not all that big on moving the lineup around. You can't do too much there. But, the way Jones is hitting and the glaring spot that they have now up at the top of the order, I'm right with you. I'd put him there in the number 2 hole. So I'll sign off on that. And I'm getting tired of sitting in here talking about let's bring Casey Mize up. If Casey Mize isn't up with the Tigers by Tuesday, Al Avila should be fired. I mean, what's going on at this point? This team needs a shot in the arm. This team has done well to this point, but they've got these injuries, and the rotation isn't pulling their weight unless they come out with something where he's going to be on the shelf or something. If he's healthy, he should be up with this team. Everybody's tired of it. We're looking for it, They've created this interest. They've done a good job, again, up to this point. But it's time to get Mize up here. Let's go.
Yeah, when they didn't have him on the opening day roster, I was fine with it because I figured, hey, if you wait a week, then you can build an extra year of team control into it. And then they started off, obviously, losing the first series, but they were, 5-2 or something like that. And you figure, all right, now they can move him into the rotation. Everything can be rolling on all cylinders. They can have that extra year of eligibility with him or team control with him. and see how long they can stay in contention. And right now, by keeping Casey Mize down there, it's showing beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have no interest in competing in 2020, even with this fluke shortened season where you only have to be a mediocre team for 60 games, or assuming they don't get those my jersey. Assuming they don't get those Cardinals games back, they only have to be mediocre for 56 games. But the Tigers and Al Avila don't even seem to be interested in that. So I have to wonder now, when it comes to when they're going to bring up Casey Mize, are they going to sit there and wait until opening day of next year, or are they going to wait until the end of April next year so they can get another year of team control with Casey Mize? Eventually you got to bring him up. Eventually you got to increase his competition level so that he can get better and the team can get better. It's befuddling right now.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Already I'm looking to Twitch here, and Joe is grinding. Is given he says, "What's up, Chappie? My man." He says he would keep Jones batting ninth. Guy hasn't been good at the top of the lineup in his entire career, although he does agree with Mize. You know, there's a point where if a guy's hitting in a spot at the bottom of the order, you don't mess with that. He's comfortable where he is. But the thing is, you also have to take a look at where your team is, and where this team is. They desperately need somebody at the top now that Crone is out. And the way Jones, it's time for him to show that he can be moved around, and it's not just he's not just a guy down there at the bottom of the order. You know, can he be somebody they can depend on? That's a move that I'm with, and against Joe. I already said I was with Chad. It seems like right now that this is a critical point here for the Tigers this season. Again, there's not any expectations for this team now that they're would be 500. I thought would be like winning the World Series if they could win 30 games now. However, that would factor in if they don't get those Cardinal games, if they could win, whatever it would be, 27 and 27, it would be amazing. But when you have a good start like this, let's go out and play these games like they really mean a lot, because they do, with the interest, the fan interest, and just where you're at in this abbreviated season. Now is the time. You are taking on your biggest rival in the Indians. You want to make a case for the Twins? All right, they're coming up next. But now's the time to be able to do it and really show everybody, because, the wins over the Pirates, and, it was a nice little start. Okay, got some wins against the Reds. But now's the time where you're playing teams in your division that you really show whether, this was just a nice little start. You ran into a couple. Now you're facing some adversity. Now's when you can really show Detroit Tigers fans that it was more than just a nice little start and that you ran into a couple.
Well, and it seems as if Al Avila is content with this being just a nice little start, and that's it, because you're right about this being the critical time. I've been talking about the schedule for weeks now, and it's not the Twins that are up next, but here is their schedule between now and the middle of September. Indians for 3 beginning this weekend, then White Sox, then Indians again, then Cubs, then you got the Twins, then the Brewers, then the Twins again, then the Brewers again, then you got one of the doubleheaders against the Cardinals, then you got the White Sox, then finally you get a breather with 2 games against the Royals, only to play the Indians and Twins after that. So they've already gotten through the JV portion of their schedule, and they did so with that 9-5 record, or I guess you could say 8-5 record, and then once the White Sox came into town, they won the first game and then lost the next 2 to get to 9-7. But there's no breather right now. If you want to be a contender, you have to put your top lineup and your top rotation out there. No Buck Farmer stings, no CJ Crone stings, but when it comes to self-inflicted wounds, Jacoby Jones hitting 9th means he's going to get the fewest at-bats every game, and he's the best hitter. Right now, he leads the team in batting average and OPS, but he also leads the team in RBIs and home runs with the fewest at-bats. He's got 46 at-bats, 11 fewer than Miguel Cabrera, 14 fewer than Nico Goodrum, and 17 fewer than Jonathan Scope. Imagine if he was A, getting more at-bats per game, and B, he was getting at-bats in more critical situations. Then, instead of having 5 home runs, maybe he has 6 or 7 right now. Maybe he has 3 or 4 more RBIs right now, and that could be enough to give the Tigers an extra win, whereas opposed to sitting here at 9-7, maybe they're 10-6. Things like that can matter. And certainly, if you go over the course of a season, looking at the number 5 spot in the rotation, they're not going to have much of a shot if every single time that 5th spot is a loss. But if Casey Mize can give you an extra 2 wins for the rest of the year, that's huge. And if he can save you bullpen arms because Tyler Alexander's going 3 innings and Mize can give you 6, it just makes a huge difference. If they don't get it turned around right now, then by the time we get to this show a week from now, we'll be talking exclusively about same old Lions training camp and the NBA bubble playoffs and things like that.
Yeah, hockey as well. I'll put in there.
Yes, hockey
Keith,
as well.
Keith, loyal follower and viewer, Keith, who gets in on the live chat on YouTube, is like, "What's up, fellas? Could they possibly bring up Torque with CJ's injury? How's he doing in Toledo? They're just scrimmaging there, right? Question mark. No minor league games, right? Mize should be up already. All right, Torque. Possibility of bringing Spencer Torkelson up this Tigers team. Chap, what do you think?"
A big fat thumbs down. Look, when it comes to Casey Mize coming up, they would not be rushing him up there, slow playing him, and he needed to be, you could argue that he should have been up on the team for opening day, but he's ready. He's proven himself at single A, at double A, and in I guess in summer camp, but I didn't see him pitch in summer camp for whatever reason. When it comes to Spencer Torkelson, he has not proven himself at any professional level. And you just don't go. No hitter goes straight from going up against college athletes to going up against not just some pros, but the best of the best pros. You think you want him in the lineup this weekend to go up against, against Shane Bieber? He would have no shot. He struggled against Detroit Tigers pitchers in summer camp. No, he's not. Don't even think about seeing Spencer Torkelson until 2022.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to, fire back at Chad, I was hoping. I mean, there have been some guys that have done well in college and have come right up. But we're talking about a long time ago, like, guys like Dave Winfield and
or
Bob
pitchers.
Warner. Sorry?
Or pitchers. Sometimes pitchers can make
right.
that leap. Lincecum did.
There have been special guys, and that's what you're hoping to get, and he still can be. But you're hoping that, like I was when they picked Torkelson number 1, and they're talking about a bat for the ages, that maybe this was a guy like Dave Winfield or Bob Horner. But no, we're gonna have to be patient and just sit around and continue to wait. It sucks, I'll tell you that part. But yeah, they're not bringing up Torque.
No, it's look. 2022. If he's on track, then 2022 opening day will be. Yeah. Next 2021. Think about
what year is it now? It's 2020 right now, right?
That's correct. And if he had a full minor league season where he had went straight from college to playing with either the West Michigan Whitecaps or the Lakeland Flying Tigers, and he had a great season with the Lakeland Flying Tigers for half of a season, then perhaps you could see him start the year next year at AA and move up to AAA and then maybe get a call up in September. But he's going up against horrible Tigers pitchers in summer camp, and I don't even know if he's getting the majority of the playing time. I have no idea, but he's got to work his butt off in the Arizona Fall League, assuming they have it. He's got to work his butt off in single-A baseball next year and then work from there. But he's not going to go from summer camp to the majors next year unless he just blows everybody out the water. He'll be right on schedule or ahead of schedule if he's the opening day first or third baseman in 2022.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Any more of the feedback? Let's just take a quick look at Twitch as I just move the screens, toggle over. I'm able to do that. What are we thinking about Norris? Mid/long-term reliever, maybe future back-end reliever. That's from Joe is Grinding. Paul is talking about protecting Casey Mize from COVID and early access this season is not worth it. And then Joe firing back on Twitch at Paul and saying, that's such a bad take. Ooh, I like it. Little
and that's about the about Mize?
On feedback.
About Torkelson?
He said, protect Mize from COVID.
Oh, okay.
This season's not worth it. So, put him in a glass case and, don't touch Mize. Now, I'm ready to call for Al Avila's head Tuesday on this show if we don't see Mize up.
I would call for his head, except I've been doing that for years, so it would be just the more of the same for me. This is nothing new, calling for Al Avila's head. He's just an absolutely atrocious general manager. You can look at his free agent signings. You can certainly look at the value that he's gotten for trades, and there's just no justification for keeping him around. All right, Dennis, let's turn the page to the second chapter.
Yeah, and that gets us to college football. And, all week long it's been pretty sad with the way everything went down on Monday, spilled into Tuesday. It was a circus. Everybody knows the story about the Big Ten and Pac-12 pulling out. But this last couple days here, we've had a couple of Big Ten coaches put out a spring model. Jeff Brom, the Purdue head coach, and also Ryan Day there for the Buckeyes. These guys, you were talking about it on Tuesday. Let's get that January season going. Plans for the spring. What do you think of these coaches talking about playing 8 or 9 games starting in January?
Yeah, and their plans do differ a little bit, because you look at the Brom plan and he says he wants an 8-game season, and his actually starts in late February. And then I guess his includes the entire college football community, not just the Big Ten. And he has the playoffs starting and ending in May. He also says that that this part of his plan would be for the fall season of 2021 to be just 10 games and start on October 2nd, so that there will be more time to rest between the two seasons that are so close together, and have a regular postseason for next fall. And he also wants to have football on Saturdays in the spring with basketball on Sundays, so that we don't miss our college basketball. 6 division games, 2 crossover games, and the first 2 games would be in southern stadiums, and the last 2 would be in northern stadiums. The Ryan Day plan isn't nearly as detailed because, well, he's a Buckeye. And he says play 8 or 9 games in the spring. And the interesting thing about his proposal is that he says that they could possibly allow early enrollees to play in the spring. So if you're a high schooler right now, most players are going to not join the team if they're a 2021 recruit until the summer of 2021 and get ready for the fall. But there are usually about 5 to 10 that like to enroll early in January. He wants those players to be able to play right away in the spring. I think that both plans have too many games. I think that they need to be playing about 6 games. 6, maybe 7 games. You play every single one of your division rivals, and then maybe add another one at the end of the season. There was talk in one plan about after you play 6 or 7 or 8 games, you play the corresponding team in the opposing division. So if you're 3rd in the East, you play the 3rd in the West for the final game, and then 1st in the East versus 1st in the West for the division championship. But 8 games seems like a lot, whether you're starting in late February, like Brom is saying, or you're Ryan Day starting the first week of January. I'd like to also keep the 2021 season at 12 games, not at 10 games, and that's a big reason to keep it at 6 or 7 games as opposed to 8 games in the spring. And then in terms of northern versus southern teams starting out the season, if it was the ACC, that'd be one thing, because they stretch from Boston all the way down to Miami. There's a lot of geographic diversity in terms of north and south. In the Big Ten, you have geographic diversity in terms of east to west, going from Lincoln, Nebraska, all the way to Piscataway, New Jersey. But there's not much difference in the weather between the southernmost school of Maryland outside of D.C. and Minnesota in terms of football games being played in February and March. It's going to be cold no matter what. I mean, Columbus is one of the southernmost schools. If they have a game in late February, there could be an ice storm. So, look, I know they're trying to be creative in a bad situation, but I think that they're starting off with too many games.
Well, this thing should have been setting off alarm bells, just like last week's farcical schedule that they put out that said they were going to start September the 5th, and they already called it a Jenga thing, and then they started playing two cross rivals instead of starting out with the Big Ten East. That thing was a joke to begin with. So is this. I think this is just a ruse by these Big Ten coaches because they know if they came out and said, you know what, guys.
Oh, no! What happened to Dennis?
If they came out and said, you know what, guys, we are really only able to have 15 practices, and that includes our spring game normally, and only 8 of those involve contact, and only 3 of those allow contact where you're going 11 on 11. Normally, when we get to the spring, we got a half dozen to a dozen guys that are getting knees and shoulders cleaned up. This is a time to work with the younger players, and this is a time to build up our strength and conditioning to get ready for the upcoming season. There's no way we can play more than 2 games if we were going to have them. We could have a friendly, we could have an exhibition, but there's not going to be anything more than that. This is nothing more than a way to CYA yourself if you're one of these Big Ten coaches. You don't want all your recruits embarrassing the Big Ten by trying to get immediate eligibility to go down and play, even though I don't think the other 3 are ultimately going to play. But it would be an embarrassment for the conference if they all tried to take off and get immediate, if there were a handful of players that tried to get immediate eligibility. This squashes that, and there's no chance that they're going to do anything in the spring. This is, these coaches, as much as they were standing out there Monday, twisting in the wind and talking about procedures and everything else, there's no chance in any spring football. This is as much as a laughing stock as that schedule that Kevin Warren trotted out there last week. So, hey, if we're just going to sit around talking about hypotheticals and things that aren't going to happen, let's talk about it. They could play those games in domes. And, what are they going to do? Bring it in the early enrollees, chap. So you're talking about a kid that's a senior in high school right now.
Yeah.
So he's going to play in the spring. He's also going to come back and play in the fall. Is that one freshman season in 1 year?
No,
the guy's going to play 12 games?
Think about this. In a 15-month period, they would go from, in some states, playing a fall season that would end around Thanksgiving, and then they'd get about a month off. Then they would have a month of practice with their new college football teammates beginning in January. And then in February, they would start the season. They'd play their 6, 8, 10-game season. And then that fall, they would play another season of 10 to 12 games. That's a heck of a lot of work. Now, look, I give credit to Ryan Day and Jeff Brown because they're just brainstorming. They haven't put this. They put their little plans out, and obviously Brahms was a lot more detailed. And now people like you and I get to discuss it. People that are decision makers can discuss it as well, and they can say, "Here's the Brown plan. Here's the Day plan. Here's another plan. Here's another plan. What makes sense, or are we going to have nothing?" So I have no issue with them brainstorming and trying to get the discussion going. But you're right. This is a pipe dream, and we're like. I wish that so much creativity, or the same amount of creativity, to try to play football during a pandemic or despite a pandemic was put into ending the pandemic. Because the best way to have college football in 2021 is not to see how many people can develop myocarditis or how many games they can play in a snowstorm in East Lansing in the middle of February. The best way is to eliminate the virus. And one more thing I'll say is, you mentioned that they're not going to have college football in the spring, and I agree with that. The biggest reason that they might not have college football in the spring, outside of the issues of how close it would be to the fall season, is that there's a possibility of a second wave. And if a second wave hits, you can forget 50,000 cases a day or 70,000 cases a day in the country, which is what we're having right now. We could be at 250,000 cases per day. We could be talking about 2,000 or 3,000 people dying per day. And at that point, there's not going to be any appetite for, well, let's just have Big Ten football. Can we at least get Michigan versus Michigan State? That's not going to happen. You have to crush the virus first. When are we going to learn that as a country?
Well, just wait till chapter 4. That'll be an eye opener for you. Keith says, "Is it just me, or is this all seem kind of crazy?" No, it's not just you, Keith. 3 of the power conferences are going to try to play. Will they be ready and risk these kids to get sick because of the money? We are living in a crazy world right now. Yeah, well, you're right about that. Money's part of it, but just like Chapman's talking about right there, we could bring on 100 people, and half of them will say, "You know what, guys, this is not that all that big of a deal. Like, we got to get out there, we got to face our fears, we got to face this, and we don't really need masks, and let's all make sure we're voting for the right person, and let's be mad at our specific governors, and we want to watch football, we want to go in person. Let us make our choice. Let us do all these things." Like, again, 100 people, 50 of them would talk like that, and all you have to do is turn on the news, depending on what channel you put it on, and you can get that particular narrative each and every night.
And if you wanted to have college football, the decisions that needed to be made to have college football needed to be made back in March and April and May. They were talking when they started closing down states and closing down schools in particular back in March and April, that the goal was to have kids back in school in September. They weren't going to have them for the rest of the year, but the goal was to have kids back in school in September. So this is not something that I think right now they can do with an eye on how things are going to look in a couple of weeks. You have to plan months in advance. And when it comes to college football and other sports, you have to start planning now for instance, what you're going to have as you get that offensive mug off the screen, what you're going to have in the spring for March Madness. Are you going to have that? If so, you got to start making decisions, not just as a school, but as a country right now. Do you want to have college football next fall? If so, you got to start making those decisions right now. This is a long-term issue, not just let's wear masks for a couple of weeks and then boom, let's get ready for LSU versus Florida. It's not that simple. And we have to understand that until we do some really hard and difficult things, not in a regional approach, not by based on one school or one state, but on a nationwide approach, we're going to continue to just deal with this garbage, and we're going to continue to have shows like this. We're talking about the virus as opposed to Purdue versus Ohio State. I want to talk about Purdue versus Ohio State on the field, not which coach has the better plan.
Well, good luck. I mean, half the people in the United States don't agree with you, Chap, so that's where we're at.
Yeah, that it's unfortunate. Let's turn the page now to the 3rd chapter, and that takes us to the same old Lions. Wealthy quarterback Matthew Stafford, to be specific, and he's had a very interesting last few months. Back in May, he put his Bloomfield Hills mansion up for sale, and that started a lot of hysteria about whether or not he was going to try to force his way out of Detroit. His wife, who's, I mean, for whatever reason, is one of the most popular NFL wives on Instagram, said, "Oh, we're just doing this because we live on a lake with small children, and we don't feel comfortable on a lake with small children anymore." Okay. Then, a week or two ago, we had the story about Matthew Stafford's positive coronavirus test, which turned out to be a false positive. And that was, of course, accompanied by another Kelly Stafford Instagram post. Then yesterday, Matthew Stafford spoke for the first time this offseason with the fake and dishonest news media. And he did so about his house. And I want to put something up on the screen so you guys can see. First off, this is a picture of his beautiful house. He's got the infinity pool, all these beautiful windows. When you're as rich as he is, of course, the sun is going to shine on your house 366 days a year. And there's the dangerous lake with crocodiles and piranhas and everything else that are going to jump out and eat children. But scroll down a little bit, and he addressed the questions about whether or not he was trying to move, and he said, "It has nothing to do with my tenure here or how long I've been here, how long I want to be here. I don't know how many times I got to tell you guys I want to be here as long as I can, but it has nothing to do with that, I promise." Now, it wasn't a pinky promise, but he did say, "I promise." And then at the end of the article, he references his wife's Instagram post. He said, "It's a family matter, that's all. I think Kelly put something out there. You guys can just ride with that." So I mean, talk about that for first. A professional athlete referring members of. Oh, I guess I forgot to put it up there. Let me scroll back up there so you guys can see. Here is the picture of the Matthew Stafford mansion. But a professional athlete actually referencing his wife's Instagram post. But then you look at his BFF, his longtime buddy and staunch defender, former teammate Dan Orlovsky, because he spoke to the media as well, and he did so yesterday, that being the Detroit Free Press. And here is what he said. This is actually coming from an SI.com post about Matthew Stafford's future in Detroit. And he says, I've said this publicly, and I've said it to Matthew. Listen, if they don't win, it's probably the right decision, and they did not win because of him. And that's talking about the possibility of Stafford leaving, because he also said, I'll keep it 100 with you. Like, listen, he's either going to win there this year, or a winner's going to come get him. I think a winner comes, gets him, or a team that's on the brink of winning is a quarterback away. I think that people will finally get to see him on a team that is fully complementary and supports that quarterback play, similar to the 2014 team or the 2011 team in some capacities. But he's saying, once again, win there this year or Stafford could be out. Dennis, when you look at all that information, Stafford saying, hey, we're not going to leave, but Dan Orlovsky saying, hey, if they don't win, Stafford could leave. Are you thinking he's gone? Do you think he's going to force his way out, or a team's going to try to acquire him? What's up with that?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that, 2 years ago when people wanted him out after that horrendous start that he had, there was no way that you were able to get him out because of all that dead cap money. And there were still, even like guys like Peter King were like, yeah, I think the Lions should trade him to Jacksonville. And then last year, it was still prohibitive to be able to trade him with all that dead money. They were not doing that. But if you look to after this year, you can trade Matt Stafford. He can get out of the deal. He can get out of Dodge, and it works. So this is a big year. Do I think that Dan Orlovsky is speaking for Matt Stafford? He is a very good friend of his. I think Kelly, I like Kelly Stafford. I like how she's vocal on Instagram. She's a fun follow. And, I wish sometimes Matt would be, I wish Matt would be a little bit more outspoken himself. I mean, he's been a very good soldier here. He's been loyal to the Fords, loyal to the organization. It's always just like, hey, guys, I'm working hard, and I take care of that behind the scenes. I'd like to see a little bit more red-ass Matt Stafford, like, yeah, you know what? We do need to win. We need to host a playoff game. Like, I'm 32 years old. Like, I'd like to see some stuff like that. But, yeah, I think it's real. One thing about Stafford is, and I know you because I've heard you say this, 5, 6, 7 years ago. What, this is another big year for Matt Stafford or else? Like, every year we say this, and we've been saying it for a very long time. But if you do look at the contract, I believe that Dan Orlovsky is speaking for his friend. I think his wife is speaking for him. And I think that looking at how they could get out of it, the Lions could be ready to move on. Now, they should have drafted Tua, back there, and it would have been a perfect situation. But they couldn't because of the back injury and them not being allowed to get a good workout with him.
Well, look, you're right about the whole this is a big year for Stafford thing. And some people have been saying that for 11 years, and I bet some people this year are going to say for the 12th straight year, this is a big year for Matthew Stafford. But I believe it was 2017 was the last time that I did the whole big year for Matt Stafford thing. And after that year, he clearly did not have a big year, and I said, all right. We said it, and I said this on my show. I said it. You all said it. We all agreed before the season, this is a big year. And if he doesn't have a big year, he's not a Pro Bowler, not one of the top quarterbacks, then it's time to move on. It's time to declare that he's an average quarterback. It's time to declare that he's not the answer. And what I found out is that most Detroit Lions fans are big liars when it comes to Matthew Stafford, because just about all of them said it's a big year, not just a big year, but it was a make or break year. That was the key word, make or break year for Matthew Stafford. He broke because he didn't make it. It was a break year, not a make year. And then what happened? Well, I think if they can come back this next year, new coordinator, new coach, new receiver, I think this year this is the real make or break. And you know what? After that, I said, I'm done. I'm done with you, the Lions fan, lying to me about make or break. You've had what at that point 7, 8, 9 years. He had none of then. And so this year, this isn't a make or break year. I mean, Dan Orlovsky can talk about if they don't win this year, then a team's going to try to get him. He's going to be out. I believe Dan Orlovsky sometimes, although he does on a regular basis puff up Stafford to be a heck of a lot better than he actually is. But I believe that this is going to be his final year. This is the Matt Stafford last dance, because I said this months ago when he put his house up for sale. You had Tom Brady put his house up for sale. A year later, he's gone. Phillip Rivers puts his house up for sale. A year later, he's gone. Now he's in Indianapolis. Matthew Stafford and his wife are going to come out with a bogus excuse that, oh, we got kids and therefore we don't want to have a lake. Are we going to sit here and act like they can't, A, get their kids swimming lessons, because a lot of kids get swimming lessons right around the time that they can walk, and B, that they're not going to watch them, and C, that they're the only filthy rich people on a lake or on that lake with children? There are lots of filthy rich people on the lakes in that area, and they have kids, and they're not all of a sudden moving to some deserted area where there's no water within 10 miles. It's bogus. Stafford's out after this year.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's 100%. I think that, there does come a time, and he's been here forever, and it hasn't worked. And so if it doesn't work again, I would agree. I don't think, I'm not sure about the house as damn sure as you are. But I do think, if they went out, and won 10, 11 games, that sounds ridiculous, or, won the NFC North.
Yeah.
So I think that he's going to demand a trade, and the Lions are going to get him out of here? No. So, but, if it goes sideways like it has so many times here because of the contract situation, I think it would be best for both parties for them to move on. And, you thank Matt Stafford. So, this is, of course, a weird year. We don't know about his head coach. You would think that he would be on the hot seat, but when you're in a pandemic and everything, who knows how many games they end up playing? Who knows, what the new owner thinks? But, yeah, if it's a poor season for Stafford, then I think that they will move on.
Well,
and they should.
Well, and I'm not sure if the Lions are going to want to move on, because they've had such a desire throughout his entire tenure to boost him up as being so great. Let's not forget when Martin Mayhew said that Stafford is obviously easily going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. But if you're right, if the Lions win 11 games, if they win the division, then that could change. But they've gone from 9 to 6 to 3 wins, so there's no sign that something like that is going to happen. And we don't need to see that. Nobody wants to see that. And on top of that, think about the coach that he's playing for and the regime that he's in right now, where when players leave the team, when his friends, when his ex-teammates leave the team, what do? They get out there and they trash the team, they trash the organization, and they praise their new organization. Not just because they are there, because players can leave one team and go to another and not trash them. But whether it's Slay, whether it's Quinn, whether it's slippery finger tight end Eric Ebron, whether it's Calvin Johnson, they all leave and they rip the team. I have to imagine that Matthew Stafford isn't the only one in that roster, in that locker room, saying, you know what, all those X-lines are wrong. This is a great place to be, and I love Matt Patricia and the way he treats me and my teammates.
Well, remember this. After the Tigers have a rough week this week, the only thing we'll have to look forward to is Detroit Lions football. So just keep that in mind. Here's Keith on a live chat on YouTube. Pad Stafford, he calls him. I'm just not a fan. Once again, they could have drafted Tua. There you go, Keith. I hate the Lions, he says. What a waste of time being a fan, except for having Barry and Kelvin. But they were so disgruntled that both of the franchise players retired at 31. What a sad commentary. That is a sad commentary. That is a very sad commentary.
It's the same old Lions. Well, let's turn the page to the to the fourth chapter.
Yeah, 4 fingers in the air. This one comes to Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. He graced everybody finally with a news conference, and he didn't disappoint as he went out there and even with Texas posting a very poor COVID numbers, he came out and talked about wanting fans there at Jerry's World, and he pointed to the airflow in the stadium. He pointed to the hole in the roof that they have over there, or their ability to get people in there. He said the Cowboys will play in front of fans this year. And then when he talked about the national anthem, he said that they would show grace for the anthem. All right, fans in the stands in a hot spot in Texas right now, Jerry Jones says, and then what do you think he meant by showing grace for the national anthem?
I have no idea. I don't know that anybody knows what grace means. I mean, I know how to have grace and things like that before you eat. But when you're talking about the anthem kneelers saying that was then, this is now, we're going to have grace. And then before that, you say everybody knows where I stand with the flag. Look, I don't have a real problem with what he said with regards to standing for the anthem. He likes to stand for the anthem. He loves to stand for the anthem. Good for him. He said he's going to back his players. Good for him. And he knows that there are a lot of players who don't want to and are not going to stand for the anthem. We're going to have grace. I think he was being intentionally vague. And I imagine when the season starts, he'll tell the players before the season, hey, I'd like you guys to stand. And he knows that not everyone's going to do so. He knows that he's not going to have the same backing behind him that he had 3 years ago. He knows it's not 2017 anymore. If a player kneels like Kaepernick, he's not going to fire the son of a bitch. He's not going to have a press conference with the president and say, today we declare Randall Cobb and Dak Prescott to be sons of bitches because they took knees. He's going to bite his tongue. He's going to get angry during the anthem instead of enjoying one of his all-time favorite songs. And then once the anthem ends, he's going to get ready for Cowboys versus Eagles or Cowboys versus Giants or whomever. That's what I think is going to happen when it comes to the anthem kneeling. Talking about grace, it's a vague statement on purpose, but he'll get over it, and he wants to win football games. He knows that his team is a Super Bowl contender with a new coach, with a contract, with a quarterback that's going to be really rich this year. He's not going to go around firing the best players on his team because they're not standing for the anthem.
Yeah, the one thing, if you're an owner there, we know nationally how it's perceived. You're beloved by Fox Sports if you call everybody a son of a bitch and, say that everybody's going to stand, and then, everybody else hates you. So, I mean, it's totally split. But if you go and talk to your team and you say, look, man, can we all show, and you talk to them and you really listen to where they're sitting right now, what they believe in, what they're trying to get done here in the short term and long term. And then you say, look, we're going to go out there and by grace, let's link arms and I'll be right there with you for the first one. I mean, you got to get out there and show some interest and show that you care about your players and their cause here. And if he does that, I think that's what we're talking about. Each and every owner's got to go and do that. You can't just go out there and make some kind of statement that we're going to have grace and do whatever you want or everybody's going to stand, because, then it's going to be a cluster. But as we saw, the owners that are able to communicate with their players and be on the same page, that, there isn't that, much of a, besides, other people outside of football getting in there. So there's a way, but, the fan part is the one, and it gets back to what you were saying earlier. It's like, why couldn't we have done this? Why couldn't we have done that? Well, we're already spinning it forward to a month from now is when the Chiefs and Texans are supposed to play. So just a little bit over a month, we're talking about the Cowboys playing. And Jerry Jones is not talking about, keeping distance and all this. He's talking about having, fans in his stadium. So, again, this is one of those situations where there's a ton of people, half the people that want to knock off my camera.
There goes Dennis again.
Other half just, want to stay home. So that's it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good look.
Yeah, when it comes to the fans in the stands and Jerry Jones saying the Dallas Cowboys plan on playing all of our football games and we plan on playing them in front of our fans, it was interesting to see what his whole strategy was for getting it done. And there are actually, I guess, 3 teams that have talked about having pods, which would be the only way it could work. And those are the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Cowboys. And the way it would work is that you would have a pod of fans. There'd be family members, friends, people that know each other that would get together in groups of maybe 5 to 15. And each pod would be socially distanced from other pods, and they would be at approximately 10, 15, 20% capacity in the stadium, so that there could be some crowd noise, and obviously so that the owners can make some more money, and so that fans can enjoy their teams. And like I said, that's the only way that it could happen, is if you have pods. You can't just have fans just scattered everywhere, or the fans all trying to clump together close to the sidelines, close to the field, because they want to have really good seats. They have to have strict assigned seating where you cannot move. Even if you bought nosebleed seats and you say, "Oh, there's some seats open down there," you can't do that. But Roger Goodell is obviously going to have to crack down on pods, crack down on fans in the stands, and put out a letter that says no fans anywhere, because it just wouldn't be fair to have even 15% capacity at Jerry's World. You get 10,000, 15,000 fans there, and then they go to play the Washington football team, which has already announced they're not going to have any fans there, and there's no advantage, because there is a home field advantage. Even though there won't be a deafening roar from the crowd that's going to get the quarterback to say, "Hey, I can't hear, and let me call a timeout," there is a boost that you get from having fans as opposed to having no fans. And one thing that I found out, I was listening to a podcast, and then I varied it. I backed up the information that they mentioned by finding a story on The Ringer about it. But it basically said that in the NBA bubble, through August 6th, bubble teams' free throw percentages are up 1.5%. So it's easier to concentrate when there's no fans behind you waving, fat heads and moving their arms around and screaming and yelling at you. And obviously, if you're a home team, they're not going to do anything. They're going to sit there like it's a library. So you have to imagine there's going to be similar effects in football as well. So they just can't say that the Cowboys and a few other teams are allowed to have them, or some teams that want to have fans aren't allowed to have them, because they have governors that say no gatherings and no fans in the stands.
I agree. It's a good point. I hadn't heard about the free throw percentages, but I'm with you on that.
All right, Dennis, let's now turn the page to not the 5th chapter, but the major wager, as we give people out there some sports betting advice now that sports is back.
Yeah, well, I hit on my last bet. I had the Vegas Golden Knights minus 200. I put 50 to win 25, and I won. So I'm up to 99, and I am going to look to tonight's Stars and Flames game. The Stars are minus 108. I'm just going to throw on 25 there, I guess, to win, 23, being minus 108. So I'm going to take the Stars for 25. To win 23.
Yeah, I did not hit on my last bet. The Marlins won again. I'm just continue to be stunned by them. But this is an easy one for me. The NBA playoffs first round matchups are all set except for the 8 seed versus 9 seed in the West. All 4 teams competing for the 8 seed and 9 seed were in action today and playing against teams that were not fighting for seeding. So that meant you had motivated teams playing against non-motivated teams and teams that were resting, teams that were going through the motions. So you could pretty much pick any one of the motivated teams to win and cover. And I went with the team that was playing latest, so that if people were following me on Twitter at BChap Sports, they could look at that and place their bets accordingly. So I went with the Trailblazers, the Portland Trailblazers, who were giving up 10 points to the Brooklyn Nets. So the Brooklyn Nets are entrenched in that number 7 seed in the East. They're just trying to get themselves healthy, and obviously the Blazers are trying to leave no doubt. They don't want to just get in with the 9 seed. They want the 8 seed, so they only have to win one time before facing the Lakers. This was an easy game for me to select. I don't know what the score is right now, but the game started 20 minutes ago, and I would not be surprised if
the Nets are up.
I'd be pretty pissed if that was the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Trailblazers are already up by 10-plus points to cover.
Well, I'll check on it for you before we leave. Keith says 22 straight seasons in the playoffs from the Spurs comes to an end tonight. What an incredible run this season, even if it didn't count. Yeah, it's a hell of a run by the Spurs. I mean, we knew that remember when the Red Wings 25 straight finally came to the end. That was it's a 1-point game.
Yep, 15-14 Nets. But there's 7:13 left in the first quarter. I am not worried whatsoever. All right, Dennis, it's now time for the fifth chapter, and that's when Dennis and I have an opportunity to share with you guys some stories about what's going on in our lives. I, of course, have another ride-sharing story for you, but we start off with the man, the fifth, the legend, Dennis Fithian.
Yeah, my story time is going to involve sports and what transpired this week, and it's one of those things where we sit around talking about all the problems with college football and just how it was never going to work with all the different reasons with the players not being in the bubble, of being a contact sport, with students coming, 50,000 students, and what we were asking them, the players, to do to stay away from them. It was never going to work, so we knew it wasn't going to happen. But even so, last week with Kevin Warren, when he put out this schedule, I was like, what are you doing? There's no way that this thing's going to work. He had 2 crossover games. They, talked about it starting September 5th, and it was like, what is this? This is farcical. And so then on Monday, when they have the vote that's leaked, this anonymous vote that went 12-2, Kevin Warren decides not to come out and come out with the vote then. He decides to wait a day, and leaving all of his coaches and players twisted in the wind. They're all making these, like, emphatic pleas, like, we've been doing everything, we've been working our tails off, and none of it mattered, man. The commissioner came out there the next day and just lowered the boom on them. But it just shows just how a billion-dollar industry like college football, which is my favorite out of all sports, it's just not fair. You can't have 3 conferences out there still acting like they're going to play. And then the Big Ten, you got the science, you got the scientists from Stanford and Michigan doing against guys from Duke and Vanderbilt. And one of them, we got, hey, what about these heart issues? And the Duke guy and the guy from the Mayo Clinic are saying, not enough data. We feel comfortable with it all. You got arguments about liability and all of this. And I just know this, like the Big Ten, they dropped the ball in making the decision. They could have easily just said on Tuesday, look, we've got a 12-2 vote saying to cancel the season, but we're still going to hang in there. We're going to just practice in helmets for the next couple of weeks, but it doesn't look good. Instead, they went ahead and went a bad PR move and just said, yeah, we're just ending it now. And it's just like this entire country. We're going to find out, because people are like, let them play football. We got to see what's going to happen. And you know what? We do have to see. So, we're going to watch my favorite sport. Can I imagine? I'm not rooting against college football not to happen now for those 3 conferences, but I can't imagine myself sitting there September 26th. I'll be watching the games if they're going to have it, but I'll be sitting there like, the Big Ten's not going to be there. It's going to be a lot of mixed emotions. So it's just been a rough week, as a college football fan and a Big Ten fan. And, thinking about just how it's going to unfold, and all of these guys, just how smart these presidents and everybody are. And then it came down to how they were twisted in the wind, and they had bad communication. And it's like, wow, man, you guys are supposed to be the smartest guys in the room. Act like it. That's my story.
Well, one thing to add there is the Big Ten season was supposed to start on September 5th, and the SEC season is not supposed to start until September 26th. So I think that perhaps one of the reasons why they didn't cancel their season the week that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 did is because they have an extra 3 weeks to just see what happens, to see who gets sick, to see what happens when students come to campus. But
the Big Ten could have done that. They could have said, "Look, we're using all of our built-in buys right now."
They could have, but I wouldn't be surprised if around Labor Day or the week after Labor Day, you got those other conferences falling in line. All right, now it's time for my story, and as a lot of you guys know, I am a rideshare driver for Uber and Lyft, and I've got another story for you, and it does once again involve the strip club. So a lot of times when I'm driving around, I act as a therapist for my riders. And I think I've become pretty good at it, and I've done so without getting some degree, some master's degree or PhD in therapy. I'm probably better than a lot of those fake doctors, that I can tell you. And I've done all the training in my car with my riders, and actually my riders have given me very good reviews, rave reviews. And I have an example for you. On Monday night at about 11:30, I picked up a man from his apartment complex in downtown Birmingham. And he was in his mid-30s, probably around my age, and he was heading to one of the strip clubs on 8 Mile. So after I confirmed his destination, the guy says, yeah, I just needed to get out. I've been locked up for 5 months, and, just talking about the quarantine and things like that. And I said to him, I still can't believe that Big Gretch is allowing strip clubs to be open. And he agreed, and I said, there's absolutely no social distancing in strip clubs, because the less social distancing a patron has, generally the more fun he's going to have, and the more money that the stripper is going to make. And then after I said that, he said, well, I have a confession to make. And he said the real reason he was going to the strip club was because he was having issues with his girlfriend. So now we're starting to get somewhere with his journey to the strip club. And he explained that he had gotten into an argument with his girlfriend that was similar to many that he's had in the past. And he said because he was angry and because he was drunk and because his desire this time was to cut her deep, he did cut her deep with his words. And I said, so what did you say? He said, well, she's very smart, she's very beautiful, she's probably the one for me. But she's wasting her talents, and I told her that she's pretty much been a failure, and she's not doing much with her life. I said, wow, I guess you did cut her deep if you said that to her. And he said, yeah, we've had this conversations many times, but this time I cut her deep, and I meant to cut her deep, and now we've got some issues. And I asked if she would admit that she should be doing more with her life, and he said yes. But I said, well, you probably should have done so in a different way. And then I also said, so now, instead of spending time and money with a woman that you think could be the one, you're going to the strip club to spend $500 on a couple of girls that you'll probably never see again. And he started laughing and said, well, I mean, when you put it that way, I said, well, that's exactly what you're doing. It's not me putting it that way. And then he tried to justify his actions by going a different route. He said, well, I've always thought I'd end up being that old lonely man anyway. And I said, yeah, a lot of those old lonely men end up going to the strip club, and they know the strippers by name. They go on a regular basis, and they give them lots of money, and he's in the back saying, yeah, yeah. And I said, and they put them in their wills. And he said, wait, what, in their wills? I said, yeah. If you want to be one of those guys, you've got to put them in their will, because I've talked to, and this is true, I've talked to multiple strippers over the years who have told me that while some of them will get a sugar daddy to pay a light bill or a phone bill, things like that, sometimes a sugar daddy will put a stripper in his will. It was astounding to me when I heard it, and my rider was obviously astounded when I said that to him, and he was like, well, yeah, I'm not going to go that far. But then we turned back to his relationship, and I said, if you love this woman and you think she could be the one, do you think there's possibly a better way to get your point across than the way you did? And he said, yeah, and he said that he did apologize to her, but he said the crazy thing is, tonight we were supposed to have a date night. I said, oh, so instead of going out with this woman that you think should be the one or could be the one, you're swapping her out for $500 worth of strippers. And he laughed again, and I said, what do you think her reaction is going to be when she finds out that you went to the strip club instead of out on a date with her? And he's like, yeah, I know. And so we get to about a mile away from the strip club, and he half jokingly says, it's probably going to be weird going into the strip club after this conversation. I said, yeah, because you're going to get yourself a lap dance, and you're going to be thinking, oh, This is the most uncomfortable I've ever been with having huge breasts in my face and having this beautiful woman give me a lap dance because I know I shouldn't be doing this. I should be with my girl, but these breasts are all in my face and it's amazing and it's so wrong. And he was laughing again, but we pulled up to the strip club and I said, look, I hope I didn't ruin your strip club experience tonight. And he said, no, I'll be fine. And he thanked me for the conversation and he said that he's got a lot of thinking to do. So that was me playing the role of therapist for my rider who disrespected his underachieving girlfriend and decided to spend hundreds of dollars on strippers instead of a woman that he said was probably out of his league and was the one.
I was hoping you were going to say that she was stripping at a rival club and he was going to the rival club. That would have been a nice payoff there, but still a nice story anyways, chap. We get a lot of them there. I was reading a Facebook post from you earlier about another Murder Mac type story. All right, that's going to do it for story time. On Tuesday, college basketball in a bubble. They're already talking about that. We'll explore it Tuesday on the Fifth Chapter.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter. Huh.